So without any further ado, let's look at this exam. Well, actually, first, let's look at the logistics of the exam. So same as your last exam, you can use W3 Schools, a calculator, textbook notes, HTML file, any programming things you've done, text editor, you can validate your code, and you can test and debug your code in Google Chrome. Okay. Hopefully some of these tools will be more useful for you this time around than they were 4 weeks ago, because we've learned a lot more about the tools and different things like that. But yeah, any questions about what you can use on the test? Okay. Again, you cannot Google things and you cannot ask people for help. Okay. There is no time limit, so give yourself lots of time. If you don't use it, great. If you use it, you'll be glad that you gave it to yourself. All right, so looking at the exam, briefly describe what is a control structure. Anyone? What's a control structure?
Doesn't it give parameters how long you're going to run your code, or?
Yeah, you're super close. It decides how the code is going to be executed. Okay, so the default control structure is just top to bottom. Okay, but then there are other things like if statements, switch statements, loops, different things like that, try-catch blocks that change that order of execution. Okay, so control structure is just how it runs. So some examples of control structures I just gave, like those different loops, if statements, selection logic, try-catch blocks, those are all different types of control structures. Okay, any questions about that?
This is probably a dumb question, but I just want to make sure it's chapters 6 through 8, this exam?
Yes. Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
And that is not a dumb question at all.
And where would you find information about control structure?
Ironically, it's actually like in chapter 2, I think.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so that's really not a dumb question. That's actually a really, really good question. All right, I am going to look over the exam when I'm not sharing my screen, and I will let you guys know if there's anything from other chapters. But if you're comfortable with the things that are here, I mean, most of the stuff that we've covered up until now, other than like computer hardware, you've been required to know it for the programs that you write every week. That's probably why the question for control structures is here, because these last 3 weeks, that's all we've been doing, is doing like loops and if statements and different things like that. Because this test is just for these 3 weeks, or these 4 weeks, but these 3 chapters. But I will double check, and I will check to see if there's anything that you will need from other chapters going into this.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great question. All right, given the following JavaScript code, what will the computer output? All right, these are really common questions. I'm not sure if you remember them from last exam, but you will have them on your next 2 exams. And they're good questions, okay? So with these questions, I would encourage you to think it through, yes, and I would also encourage you to run it. You are allowed to write and run code and use your developer tools. And so I would encourage you to do that. All right, so just looking at this, we have bar 1 equals 7, bar 2 equals 1 plus 3, which is 10. And we have this neutral message. And what are we going to output? Okay, is 1 less than 5? No. So we jump all the way down to the bottom of this bracket and we alert message, which is neutral. So what would it output? Just neutral, because it didn't even go into these blocks of code to change the message. Okay. People get hung up on these because of the brackets and the nested if else statements, because if this else statement were below this curly bracket, then the message would be boo instead of neutral. Okay, so we really have to pay attention on these to where your brackets are and to which if else statements correspond with each other.
So your output would be neutral without the quote marks, right?
It would be, so if you put in neutral, it's a string, and so you should include the quotations. Because what does message equal? Message equals this string. And so alert itself wouldn't include these strings, wouldn't include the quotations. And so either one that you put in, you'll get right.
Okay.
So yeah, good question. So this one's a little bit tricky because if the question was like, what will message equal? Message equals a string, and you'll have to include those quotations. If it's just alert, if I alerted message, then it won't include the quotations. But either way, you should be right. So good question. Any other questions about this one? Okay. Question 3, the following JavaScript code contains an error. Rewrite it so it is correct. Assume the variable age exists and has a valid value. Okay, so let's look at this. If age is greater than 3 and less than 4, does anybody see the error in here?
Yeah, you need to flip it.
Okay, what else? Anyone else see anything else?
You need to add the additional age.
Yeah, very good. So yeah, if we're dealing with whole numbers here, then that could not ever happen. So like Lynette, like you were saying, age is greater than 3 and less than 4, like that couldn't happen if we were dealing with whole numbers. Obviously could if we were dealing with decimals. But yeah, Christy, like what you said, we have to add age in here. Okay, this is invalid code and will not work the way that we intend it to work. Instead, I would have to say, what was that? If age is greater than 3 and age is less than 4. So that's what she was saying. We have to add that second age in there. Otherwise, it won't work. So, all right. Any other questions about this one, about number 3? Okay. Number 4, the following code contains a logical error. Okay. A logical error, an example of that is what Lynette just said. You have to switch, where the 3 and the 4 are or something like that. Rewrite it so that it is a meaningful check. Assume the variable age exists and has a valid value. Okay. So what do you guys think on this one? What do you guys think needs to change?
I think right now it's going to be showing every number before 4 and every number after 7, so it could just go on and on. So it needs to be switched, just like before.
Yeah, and let's give age a variable or a value. Let's say age is equal to 3. Okay, is there ever a time where age will equal less than 7 and be greater than 7? It's impossible. Okay, so yeah, Emily, what you said, and also like this, it's impossible. So we could switch this a couple of ways. We could say if age is greater than 4 and age is less than 7, or say, if age is less than 4 or greater than 7, depending on what age group we wanted to isolate. But right now it's a logical error because age can never be less than 4 and greater than 7. It's just impossible. All right, any questions about this one?
I have a question about the parentheses in this one. It's like, do we need them? And it's like one is missing.
Yep, one's missing. So it looks like this contains a logical and a syntax error. Good catch, Lena. All right, any other questions on this one?
Do you need the parentheses?
If you were going to run this in your code, you definitely need the parentheses. If I copied this right now and tried to run it, it would give me not just logical errors, but it would give me a syntax error because it's missing a parenthesis.
Well, I mean, like in problem 3, right above it.
Yeah. Oh, I got what you're saying.
Right.
So no, depending on what you're trying to do, you don't need the parentheses. This would work fine without these inner parentheses, as long as you had the outer ones, obviously. But I could say if age is less than 4 and age is greater than 7, or age is greater than 7, I could check that and it would work without the inner parentheses.
Okay.
Yeah, good questions. All right, given the following JavaScript code, what will be output to the user? Another one of these output questions, okay? So var3 equals 7, var4 equals 5. Look at how confusing this is. var5 equals 4 minus 3 times 4, which aren't those numbers actually, okay? So 3 is 7 and 4 is 5, okay? So order of operations, we're going to multiply the variables 3 and 4, which are the values 7 and 5, together first, which is 35. And then we're going to take 4 minus 35, and 4 is 5. So 5 minus 35 would be negative 30. And then we're going to output 30 minus 2, which would be negative 32. Okay? And again, like your brains are great. Use them and also check after you're done. Okay. So if I was doing this, I'd be like, yeah, I'm pretty sure it's negative 32, but I would want to run it first. Okay. Google Chrome's amazing. I can come over here and be like var3 equals 7, var4 equals 5, var5 equals 4 minus 3 times 4, alert 5 minus 2. Negative 37. See, it's a good thing I checked. All right. So, any questions about this one?
Why is it 37 minus 37?
Oh,
You
oh,
assigned 3 to
Yeah.
8 on accident.
yeah, let's try that again. So 3 is equal to 7. That'll change things up. And then, whoops, sorry guys. And then var5 equals 4 minus 3 times 4. Oh, whoops. var5, you can't just name a variable a single number. var4 minus 3 times 4. And then alert 5 minus 2. Negative 32. So we were right. Okay.
So I actually have a question with how
Yeah.
it works. Like it says uncut syntax error, for example.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it means. So like, how, is there like a cheat sheet where you can read what null means, what syntax error is? You know? Like somewhere to look what those mistakes actually mean.
Yeah. So if there's like a magical list that has everything, I've yet to find it. You know, if you look on like the JavaScript documentation, it's super confusing. Like even after like years of experience, I never look at the JavaScript documentation. Okay. So right here, I realized what I did because it said unexpected number. I'm like, huh, that's weird. Like, and then I realized, oh, it's because like this is the only number that I typed in was this 5. The other ones are variable names, you know. And so I realized that when it said unexpected number, uncaught syntax error, it's just anytime there's like a syntax error, anytime, you know, like if you missed a parenthesis, it'd say uncaught syntax error, expected parenthesis, or unexpected function name because you like tried to declare a function after you didn't close a parenthesis or something like that. You know, so usually with the syntax errors, it'll say something afterwards. It's like giving you a little bit of a clue. But no, I've yet to find like a comprehensive list.
I just had one of the programs, it was like undefined, I think. And
Yeah.
it took like 2 hours to figure out what was undefined. It was like silly, like comma or something. But
Yeah. So
find it.
so that can be a little bit tricky, you know. Like let's say I named this one like table size, and then I tried to add like I have table size right here, but these are now different variable names because this has a lowercase s and this has a capital S. So if I tried to run this right now, hopefully I can produce an undefined error. We'll see if I can. Okay, so I'm going to type in 5. No output. That's good. I broke it. But I don't have, oh, there we go. Uncut reference error. Table size is not defined. Okay, and so what I would do to find this, I would copy this and paste it. Okay, and I see I have a couple of table sizes. I can click on this little big A, capital A, or lowercase a down here. Never mind. Okay, capital A and lowercase a, and then it will be a case sensitive search if this is highlighted. Okay, and so what it's saying is, you know, table size isn't defined. Come back here, it says line 31. So I know that it came across this error on line 31 and it says this isn't defined. Be like, well, yeah, it is. I declared it right here. And if I look carefully, they're different. You know, so anytime I have like an undefined error, look on that line of code, see what it's telling you about, search for it in your code, see why it's saying it's not defined. Because anytime it says it's not defined, it's because you're trying to use a value that you haven't declared yet. Or in this case, I was just using the wrong value. So
I have a quick question.
yeah, go ahead.
Can you put other stuff in your console to test it out, like an if statement?
You sure can. Yeah, so let's say I have var x equals 20. If x is less than 20, alert This is awesome. Close it. You got to have the syntax right. And nothing happened because x isn't less than 20. So if I say x is less than 30 and we ran it, you could, you know. So yes, you can check it. But again, I mean, if I tried to do this and I didn't have, say, like this closing bracket, wow, it's not even letting me end it. That's cool. Didn't used to do that. So Google Chrome is kind of saving my bacon here because I'm trying to run it by hitting enter and it's not letting me because I haven't finished my if statement yet. So, but you do have to have proper syntax in here. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, you guys are awesome. I love your questions. Okay, let me close out of this ugly thing. 434. All right, rewrite the following condition using ands instead of or, sorry, to produce the exact same meaning. Okay, so right here I have a is less than 3 or b is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so with these questions, I like to think about what it will produce for me. Okay, so this right here will give me everything when a is less than 3. So this will give me from 2 and under, okay, for a, or b is 5 and up. Okay, so I could be like, okay, if I was going to rewrite this using the AND operator, let's open up this again. This is to clear out your console if you guys ever want to do that. So if I said, let's just give a value of 2 and b a value of 7. Okay, and I'm just going to use that just to help me kind of test a little bit. And I say if a is less than 3 or b is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so that's one way I'm going to write it. And I'm just going to write that out just to kind of help me see what it would look like inside of an if statement. And then I have to figure out how to do that with an and. Okay, so I could say if, let's see here, a is less than 3 or b is greater than or equal to 5. So everything outside of this would be if a is greater than 2, let's see here, a is less than 3 or b is greater than and equal to 5, greater than or equal to 5, using the and. So if, guys, I'm having like stage fright here. So let's look at this real quick, which is always embarrassing. Okay, negating operator, De Morgan's law. So this right here, a is greater than or equal to 3, all right? And I'm negating it, and b is less than 5. Okay, so you take everything that it was outputting, and then you find the opposite and negate it, and you can use that to use the double ands instead of the or operator. Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay. All right, looking at the next one, I'll close that again. Given the following JavaScript code, how often will the program output skunks? Okay. Here we have a nice do while loop. Okay. And what is special about a do while loop? Do you guys remember?
They always output something.
Yes, always, at least once. It is the only post-test loop in JavaScript. Okay, which all that means is it's going to execute whatever's in this loop first, and then it will check to see if it should repeat again. Okay, so x is equal to 3, x plus equals 2, all right, and it says while x is less than 12. Okay, so we jump from 3 to 5, 7, 9, 11, loop through. It'd get hit a total of 4 times. Okay, and again, our brains are awesome, so we might as well check our work. Okay, so var x equals 3, and then do document dot write. You know what, I'm not going to do document dot write in this window because I don't want to lose my practice exam2.pdf. So I'm going to say alert skunks with a break. Okay, so I'm still going to show the same thing. And then x plus equals 2. And then while x is less than 12. Okay.
Can you copy and paste and then copy it on the exam and paste it over there?
Possibly. So here's the thing with copying and pasting. My PDFs are funky. If I tried to highlight this text and paste it, I'm going to paste it into here first. It is frequently, it ends up carrying over like weird characters that are invisible that you can't see that are like part of the PDF. And so so I'll show you, I'll give you an example. I'm going to paste this and there's like a nice little error. See, it looks perfect. It says uncaught syntax error, invalid or unexpected token. We're like, this looks perfect. I just copied and pasted it. But if you look at these quotations really carefully, they're like different characters than these ones that make us a string. Okay, so I'd have to come in here, delete that, put that in there. Okay, so sometimes depending on, see, look, that's what document.write does. I lost my PDF. Depending on what you're copying from, whether it's a website or an email or Google Hangouts, if you're into like texting yourself code or anything, you know, it can carry over weird characters. So in theory, you should be able to copy from the exam, but it's possible that you won't be able to, and you'll have to just write it out.
Okay.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions? Oh man, I really lost it. That's okay. This one. All right, no more questions on that one? All right, so we just did skunks. That's gross. Okay, given the following JavaScript code, how often will the program output goodbye? Okay, so another one of these. This is like our fourth one on this practice exam that we've had to like check to see what's going to be output or how often something's going to get output. So practice this. Practice running them in your console or, you know, just practice. For our q equals 12, while q is less than 5, q minus 5 is less than 8, document.write, goodbye, break, minus q. Okay. Again, if you use the same tab, like if I hit F12 right here, don't do this on your exam. Okay, use a different tab to use your developer tools. Otherwise, if you use document.write in there, it'll wipe out your whole exam just like it did with my PDF. Okay, just a little tip for you. Okay, so document.write, goodbye. We're going to minus q, so q will go down 1 every time we loop, while q minus 5 is less than 8. Okay, and so if I ran this, I'm just going to open this up so we can see it. All right, if our q equals 12, while q minus 5 is less than 8. Actually, I don't want to run this. I just realized another good reason to use another tab. I'll show you here in a sec. Document.write, goodbye. Minus q, and close my loop. All right. Again, I'm not going to run this in this tab, but I will run it in this one that we're done with. All right. If I run this, oh, whoops! Did I not declare q? What was q? Did I just lose my exam again? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay, I declared it in the wrong tab. Okay, so q is equal to 12. And now I'll run this. Okay, notice it didn't document.write anything. Okay, if I was going to alert this same thing, oh, look at my cursor. My cursor is doing something funky. This is an infinite loop. Okay, this tab is completely frozen. Everything's dead, which is why I said it's another good reason to not use the developer tools in the tab of your exam. Because if you use document.write in there, or you do infinite loop, you'll kill your tab. So yeah, and this is infinite because Q 12 minus 5 is 7, and we're decreasing Q. So it'll go from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4, and it will always be less than 8. So any questions on this one?
So what do we do if we accidentally kill the browser while doing the exam?
Well, thankfully Google Chrome is pretty resilient. Usually it'll let you kill a single tab and not kill your entire browser. But yeah, just be careful about it. Make sure to do it in another tab. But yeah, you should be good. All right. Oh, wrong one again. There we go. Let me close this. All right, desk check the following code. You will have desk checks on this exam. All right, so var start equals parse float, get an input from the user, end is 70.3. All right, for var step equals 1, accumulate equals start, while it's less than end, accumulate plus equals step. Okay, so something that you can do, this is something really nice to use with like the debugger. Let's say, I'm not going to do it right now, but let's say I copied and pasted this code into my text editor, and then I saved it in a program, and then I opened it in a tab. Then I could put a breakpoint in there and like walk through this and walk through each step. Okay, that's a really good way to do desk checks. Okay, now some people might be like, well, that's like cheating. You'll like see all the answers. Well, it's not cheating, because if you can figure out how to use these tools, it's way better than being able to be like scratching your head for like 20 minutes trying to figure it out. You know, being able to use these tools is huge, because they will help you a lot when making websites and stuff like that. So do you guys want to go through this one real quick, or want to just leave it? You do? Okay. So I'm going to do that, and I am going to try to copy this, and we'll just deal with the messed up characters. All right, so we have our generate table. I'm going to go back to our template. You know what? I'm going to fix my template and then mess with a different file. Okay. So I'm going to put this, let's see, was that inside of a function? It was not. So I'm just going to put that into here. Okay. Okay, cool trick. I have all this like ugly formatting here. If I highlight everything by hitting Control A, go to selection, or no, edit, line, reindent, it'll tab a couple of things over for me to help me a little bit. Okay, but I still like having everything indented inside of my function and my function indented. All right, that's just me. Anyways, okay, so I have this function that'll get called. I need an input box ID. Oh, I have a question in the chat. Oh, no, I don't. Okay. And okay, so I have this code in here. It doesn't look like I have any messed up quotations or anything else, so I'm just going to copy this file path and run it. Okay, we don't have anything outputting to the page. We didn't do that, and we don't care because we're coming here for the debugger. Okay, so I'm going to put this breakpoint right here, call my function, and I can step through this, hover over start, it's undefined. Oh, I guess I need an input, so I'll say 5. Okay, and I can look at each one of these values and see what it is like as I'm stepping through it. So let me just make sure I'm not getting that value real quick. So if they gave us, let's look at this real quick. So start is 23. So they did give us 23. So I'm going to come back here and I'm just going to say start equals 23 because I know exactly what it is. And I'm going to run it again. Hit submit. Okay, so starts 23, end is 70.3. Okay, and if I look back at this, you can see that's already like my first one that I need right there. End is declared at 70.3. We can see it right there. And we saw it in our debugger. Okay, now I have to worry about step and accum. So let's look at those. Okay, so step was just declared as and assigned the value of 1. Accum was given start, which is 23. And so those would be my first values. And then every time they change, I'll just look at that and be like, okay, you know, it's changing. Step just increased by 3. And then accum was given the value of start, which is 27. Step was increased by 3 again, you know? And so you can walk through this hovering over these different values and just kind of fill in the blanks in here as you go. Okay. Does that make sense? Do you guys see how I did that?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay. All right, let's keep on going. Write a complete JavaScript program that inputs 2 integers from the user, min and max, and then outputs all the integers whose squares are between min and max inclusive. You may use the following code as a starting point for your program. Okay, so we are, if anyone wants to leave, you can. This is going to be recorded, but we're going to do these programs together so that we can just get some practice for thinking through these kind of prompts and then seeing them through to the end. Okay, so I'm going to take their template that they gave me, and I'm going to save it in a place on my computer to be. All right, so I'm going to tab this over a little bit, just so it's easy for me to see what's going on. So it said a defining table and a program. So we have to do it all. So the input, it said, what's our input going to be, you guys? Let me blow this up a little bit so you can see it.
2 integers.
2 integers, min and max. Okay, so we're going to have min integer and max integer. Great. And then outputs all the integers whose squares are between min and max inclusive. Okay, so what's our output going to be?
All the integers whose squares are between min and max.
Perfect. So I'm going to grab this and paste it right there. Now, what's our processing going to look like? This is the tricky part. What do you guys think? How are we going to do this?
Can you show us the problem?
Yes, sorry.
All the squares between min and max. So the square root of each number in between min and max.
Okay.
Or
Do you guys think?
not square root, but the square.
Yeah, I know what you meant. Do you guys think we're going to need a loop?
I think we're going to need an if statement.
For sure, yeah. So what's our if statement going to check?
If it's between.
Yeah. So if square is between min and max. Okay, good. So for that, we're going to need a squared value, right? So we'll say compute square. And what are we computing the square on? Like, do you think a loop will come in here? So let's say the user gave me like the numbers like 10 and 100. Okay, so I would know if we have to find the squares, it has to be between 10 and 100, right? So and the squared values would have to be between 10 and 100. So if I loop up to 100, I know I'm going to isolate every number in there that squares equal to a number less than 100. Okay, so I could say loop up to 100 or up to max integer. Okay, and that's going to be overkill. Okay, because obviously 99 squared is going to be way more than 100. But this could be a good starting point for us. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? Why we might want to use a loop for that? Okay, and then for computing our square, if we're looping and we're going to go from say like 0 to 100, we could just square I, our iterator. Whatever we're iterating, when we're at 1, we'll square it. When we're at 2, we'll square it. When we're at 3, we'll square it. So I could say compute square by squaring the iterator. Okay. So let's think this through. So we have our input, which is min and max. We'll loop up to the maximum integer. Compute square by squaring the iterator. And then check that square to see if it's between min and max, and then output all the integers between min and max, whose squares are between min and max. Does that sound okay? Okay. Let's give it a shot. Okay, so I'm gonna have a function. I'll just say get squares in range. Have that declared. And then we have a nice little button that they gave us. That was really nice of them. And I'll put my function there. Okay, good so far? Okay. Now I have an input with an ID of min and max. So I'm going to copy both of these. I held control to copy both of them. And I'm going to paste them right here. And I'm going to say document.get element by ID min and max dot value. Now, we know these are numbers and are going to be squaring them and using comparisons with them. So I'm going to say parse int. Let's see if there's any instructions on that, whether we should use whole numbers to integers, whole numbers. Okay, so we're going to parse int for both of these. And then I'll just say var min equals that and var max equals that. And we have our input. Any questions to this point? You guys are awesome. All right, so our output, so all the integers whose squares are between min and max inclusive. Let's see if we had any word on what type of output we needed. Outputs all the integers. So it doesn't say. It doesn't say if it wants like a comma delimited string or like a list. Excuse me. So what we're going to do is just declare var message. Actually, you know what? I'll be more descriptive. I'll say var valid squares. And I will declare this as a string that we'll just add to. And we'll use that to output to the user. So they gave us an output with an ID of, or a div with an output with an ID of output. So I'll say document.get element by ID output dot inner HTML equals valid squares. Okay, easy part's done. Any questions until now? So I like to do this kind of in this order, and then I'll check it just to make sure I don't have any like big old errors that are going to mess me up later on down the line, because it's easier to debug smaller chunks of code than large chunks of code. So I don't have any errors over here. I can type in numbers in here, but I'm not doing anything with them. I have an error now. Get element by ID is not a function, see? So one of these has a typo. So I'll fix that. Wow, all of them have typos. That's awesome. All right, so good thing we checked. So now I hit the button and nothing's displaying because all I did was display an empty string, but we don't have any errors, okay? So this is good. It's always smart to write small chunks of code and then check to make sure that small chunk is functioning whatever you did, okay? And we'll do that same thing with this processing as well. So loop up to max integer, okay? Any preference on for or while loop? What do you guys think? What do you guys prefer?
Can we see a for loop?
Let's do it. I love for loops. So for I equals 0, I is less than max, I plus plus. Okay, so every time we go through, we'll increment I1 all the way up until it hits max. And again, we could probably do like max divided by 2, you know, or even less, but we'll leave it like this for now. Okay, so we have our loop. Does that look good to you guys?
Mm-hmm.
So let's look at this. We loop up to max integer, check. Compute square by squaring the iterator. Let's do it. So var square equals I times I. Or we could do math.pow I to the power of 2. Either one. Okay. So we have our square computed, which is I times I. And then if square is between min and max. Okay. So here's where that if statement comes in. So we'll just say if square is, what do you guys think?
Greater than or equal to min.
Okay. What next?
And,
And
yeah, less than or equal to max.
less than or equal to max, like that.
Write the square twice.
Okay.
Right?
Yes. How's that look? You guys are rocking it. Okay, sweet. So if that is the case, we have our beautiful valid squares output here. So we'll just say valid squares plus equals I, right? Because all the integers whose squares are between min and max. So we don't care about the square value, we care about the integer itself, okay? So let's give this a shot. Anything you guys think we should change? Oops. Okay, sweet, me either. Let's give it a shot. All right, so if min is 10 and max is 100, that is hideous. All right, let's go back, let's work on this a little bit. So we're gonna need something here. Let's say, do you guys want a list or like a comma delimited string? What do you guys think?
Can we do comments?
You sure can. All right, so we'll just add a comma and a nice little space after every single one. And let's run it. 10 and 100, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's pretty
How do you
sound,
get
right?
rid of the comma at the end of the 10?
That's a fantastic question. I'm glad you asked. So, what is something we could Google to figure this out?
I don't know. This is what I had a problem with on my week assignment.
Yeah. All right, so what data type is this?
Text. Yes.
String, yes, good. Okay, so, and what are we wanting to do? We want to remove the last character, right, in the string? Yeah, all right. So let's say JavaScript, remove last, look at that, character from string. Okay, two methods. Let's see, is there W3 schools in here? There is, string slice. Let's look at that. Okay, so we have our string equals hello world, string slice 0, 5. That looks really confusing. Let's check it out. All right, so we have a string hello world, and if we slice it 0, 5, let's see what that does. Hello. Okay, so what slice does is it takes, these are locations in the string. Okay, so this would be like the 0th character in it, or I guess we'd say first in English, but everything in JavaScript is pretty 0 based. So H could be considered at like address 0, and then E would be 1, L2, L3, and then the next 0, or then the O would be 4. Okay, and then we cut off from 5 and on. Okay, so if I wanted to do something like that with this, I could say, you know, after my loop, because I know I'm always going to have like an extra comma here, I could say valid squares dot slice, and then it needs two parameters, right? So we want our string, so I'm going to put 0 there, and then who knows how long this thing's going to be. So I'm just going to say valid squares dot length. Let's see if that works. It might not. Okay, and we'll run this. 10 and 100. Let's debug it just for kicks. We already know that all of this is working, so let's leave it and let's put a breakpoint right there. And let's run it. Okay, so valid squares. Okay, we knew that was working. Slice is defined, that's good. Let's see if valid squares.length exists, and it does. Okay, so valid squares.length is 22. And so let's see what we get after we slice that. Okay, it didn't change anything because that's the entire length. Okay, so let's say length minus 2 to take off these last 2 characters. Let's run that again. 10 and 100. Click it. We have valid squares. The length is 22. If I highlight this whole thing, so 20. And if I go again, oh, we need to assign this to a value. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Okay, so it did do this, but we didn't assign it anywhere, and it didn't change this. So I could either say valid squares equals that, and that would work, or I could put this down here and just have it take off that comma right when we display it. Either one will work. Okay, so if I run this again, let's take this off 10 and 100, and you can see it took off that comma. Okay, and if you look here at some of these other options, you notice that W3 School one was way down there. It means it's not clicked on as much. You know, you can find other ways to take off like the last character of a string. Okay. All right. So how do you guys feel about this program?
I'm on mute, but thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. How do you guys feel about this program? Okay, sweet. Well, let's go to the next one then. Okay, wrong tab again. Write a complete JavaScript program that finds and outputs the third perfect number. A perfect number is one whose factors, including 1 but excluding the number, add up to the number. For example, the first two perfect numbers are 6 and 28 because the factors of 6 are 1, 2, 3, and 6, but we're not adding the number itself. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. And then same thing with 28. Okay, so this one, excuse me. So this one's a little bit more complex, and you will not have anything this complex on your exam. Okay, so take courage. Do you guys want to do this one real quick?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, let's do it. If I can copy this thing. All right. So I'm going to copy their template. Goodbye, squares and range. And alrighty, tab this over again. Okay, so let's break this down. Write a JavaScript program that finds and outputs the third perfect number. So what is our input going to be?
Could you do like, okay, I don't know. It doesn't seem like there is an input.
There's not an input. Okay, so input, none. All right, what is our output?
The third perfect number, right?
Okay, yep, perfect. Get it, perfect. I'm just kidding. Okay, third perfect number. All right, and processing, the best part. What is our processing going to look like? What do you guys think? This is the part that's more complex than what you'll have on your exam. It is helpful to see this, however, because we know somewhat what it's going to look like, right? So what do you guys think? What are some things that we're going to need inside of our processing?
I think you'd need like an if statement, like with parameters from 0 to the number or 1 to the number.
Okay.
Well, no, that doesn't make sense. I don't know.
So you definitely will need an if statement, right? Because to be able to isolate these numbers, they have to be divisible by 28 or by 6 or by whatever the third number is, right? So first of all, we know we only want the third number, right? So I could say we're going to want to like declare a sum, right? Because the numbers need to add up to the third number. So let's see here.
Would it help if we tried to figure out what the third perfect number was before we did it?
Maybe. That sounds harder to me actually, but maybe. All right. So looking at this, we're going to have to loop through and check every number to see if it's divisible by the number that we're looping through, right? So we're going to need, sounds like a couple of loops here, because we're going to have to loop to keep on going up, right? This is a sentinel controlled loop, a classic sentinel controlled loop, because we have no idea how many times we're going to loop for, okay? So let's write that out. Loop until we find third perfect number. Now in here, let's tab this over a little bit, because inside of our loop, we're going to have to do a couple of things, right? So let's say we loop from 1, okay? We'll find the perfect number of 6, we'll find the perfect number of 28, and then we'll stop once we hit our third perfect number, okay? Until then, we're going to have to do some, well, we're going to have to check to see if things are divisible by that number, right?
Can I
So
ask
we've
a
done,
question?
yeah, go for it.
What do you mean by perfect number?
So the definition that the assignment gave for perfect number is whose factors add up to the number, including 1 but excluding the number. So 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6. So this is considered a perfect number.
Oh, okay.
The next one is 28 because its factors, discluding the number, equal 28. 1, 2, 4, 7, 14.
Okay.
Okay. Good question. Hard to do that assignment without, yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so we're going to loop until we find the third perfect number. In those loops, we have to check to see if, well, I guess we need to add the factors. So in order to add the factors, we're going to have to get the factors. So divide number by all numbers lower than it, really. All numbers lower than it to find divisors, or factors, I guess. Okay.
Would that be a loop right there?
What was that, Christy?
Said, would that section, the divide numbers, be a loop right there?
Yes. Yeah, because right here, we're going to have to loop, and we're going to have to tell the program to stop at 3, right? So right here, let's go ahead and put another loop, loop 2, divide number by all numbers lower than it to find factors. Okay. All right, and then we're going to need a condition statement right here, right? If it's a factor, we'll add them. Okay, so if factor, whoops, then we'll add the factors to sum. Okay, we'll have a sum there too. All right, and then, all right, how's that look so far? I think this is a really good start. This will be inside of that loop as well. But then down here, outside of this loop, we have to check to see if all those factors, the sum of all those factors, is equal to this number that we're looping through. Okay, so we'll have another condition down here that says if sum is equal to the first number we are iterating through. Okay, what do you guys think so far? Does it make sense a little bit? We might not even be on the right track. But I think this is a good starting place. What do you guys think? Yeah? Okay. Well, let's give it a shot then. So let's say function get perfect numbers. All right. One thing that might make this a little bit more, well, I guess we'll worry about reusability afterwards. Let's get this functioning first. All right, so let's say var, let's say perfect count equals 0. Okay, and then we'll have our output. We'll just declare that as a string. Okay, and then we'll have our first loop here. We loop until we find our third perfect number. So this is not a sentinel controlled loop. This is a counting loop, and as soon as it, well, hang on. So let's see. So we'd have for var I for our iterator here. We'll say I equals 2. Perfect count is less than 3. Okay, because perfect count is currently at 0. So we'll get the numbers 0, 1, and 2, and then that'll be it. And then we'll just say I++. Okay, and then in here, we know that we're going to have to add the factors to a sum. So we should declare sum before this loop. Okay, so every time we loop through this, we'll declare its own sum for whatever number we're looping through. Because if you look at this right here, we're going to start I at 2, because we don't have to multiply 1 by anything. And we'll increment I. Okay, so this is a sentinel loop. It'll just keep on going until we find our perfect number. Okay, and so I plus plus, so right here we'll just say var sum equals 0, and then we'll have our next loop. Okay, and this loop is to divide numbers by all numbers lower to it, lower than I, what we're incrementing to, right? Or what our current iterator is until we find our perfect numbers. Okay, so I could say var, and I'll say divisor, okay, the number that we're going to be dividing stuff by, equals 1. And then divisor is less than I. Space that out a little bit. It's less than I. And then divisor plus plus. Okay, so right here we have our second loop set up. And we're going to loop through all the numbers lower than I. Okay, good so far? Okay. Now in here, we have a nice little if prediction, right? If factor, then add the factors to the sum. Okay, so we'll say if I modulus divisor equals 0. Okay, because if I have 10 and I have 10 modulus 2, it's divisible by 5, so the remainder would be 0. Okay, so if I modulus divisor is equal to 0, then that's a factor, and we will add divisor to the sum. Sum plus equals divisor. Okay, so we're good until this point. How are you guys feeling so far? Okay. All right, let's see. So we have this. Else, we don't care about an else. We don't care about the other numbers. But then down here, for this second if statement, we have to check to see if it's going to be a perfect number. So if sum is equal to I, this number that we're looping through up here, then we're going to add to our output string. Output plus equals, we'll add I as our perfect number, plus break. Okay. And then in here, so we found our perfect number. We need to increase our perfect count. If we don't increase our perfect count right here, we'll end up with an infinite loop, which would not be fun. Okay, so anytime we find a perfect number, we have to add to our perfect count, so that once we find our 3 numbers, we're done. Okay. All right. Questions so far? Okay. We need an output. So let's say document.getElement by ID. We have an output div down there. Inner HTML equals output. Okay. All right. Questions so far? All right. Let's run this in the browser. That's not it. This is it. Okay. Let's put a breakpoint right here. We're going to step through it for a sec. Oh, we forgot to call our function. See that? I clicked on this and my breakpoint didn't get hit. I'm like, either my browser's broken or we didn't call the function. So let's throw this down here so that our button does something. Let's refresh it. Good. Our function was called. That's great progress. All right, perfect count 0. Output is a string so far. Okay. So we're going to start up in this first one. Perfect count is 0. We haven't found anything yet. And sum is equal to 0. Divisor equals 1. Well, divisor is less than I, which is 2. We'll add to divisor. Okay. So I is 1. I modulus divisor is equal to 0. Okay, so our sum is 1. And so we're looping through I, and that didn't match up. So let's go through it again. So I now is 3. Perfect count is still 0. All right. We'll check to see if 3 modulus 1 is equal to 0, and it is. Okay, so we added 1, we added our divisor to sum. Okay, divisor is now 2. 3 modulus 2 is not equal to 0, so we're skipping back up there. And we come down here, sum is 1. Is sum equal to I? Nope, I is 3. So let's check our next number. Okay, and now we're up to 4. We're checking to see if 4 is a perfect number. Okay, and now for each one of these, we're going to check to see if 1, 2, 3, and 4 are divisible by it. Or 1, 2, and 3, sorry. So we'll check each one of those. So this is going to go on a long time. I'm going to stick a breakpoint inside of here for when sum is actually equal to I. Okay, so when we find a perfect number, I'll hit F8. Come down here, our first one is 6. Okay, 6 was a perfect number that was found. We'll add that to our output, and then we'll increment perfect count. So we have found one perfect number. Keep on going, I'll hit F8 again until we find our next one, which is 28. All right, we'll increment perfect count. Add it to our output, and we'll go again. Our next one is 496. Okay, and we'll add that to our perfect count. And there we go, there's our third perfect number. Okay, one way that I was going to say that we could make this a little bit more reusable is if I said var number of perfects to get equals document.get element by ID user input dot value. And then right here, I could just put this here and then have an input for the user to say how many perfect numbers they want to find. Whoops, I messed up something. ID. Okay, so now if we tried this again, and I typed in 3, you can see we still have 3 numbers, and if I typed in 4, okay, it's getting bigger and bigger. Now, this is another way that we can break a program or a browser tab. Notice I clicked on this and it's still thinking. This next one is going to be really, really big if it even exists. So I guess not really much application to adding an input there. But any questions about this?
What if you wanted the output to look like the example in the question?
Let's look at the question. Wrong tab again. Ooh, that's a great question. All right, so let's think this through. So we have our divisors, right? So let's come into this loop where we actually find those numbers like 1, 4, 7, 14, those ones. So in here, let's see, how could we do that? So let's worry about this part first. Okay, so I'm going to make, so we have our output thing right here. I'm also going to declare a var mini output equal string. Okay, now this mini output is going to be for each number. Okay, since we're going to have some string concatenation going on here, I think it'll make more sense to have like a little mini output for each number. Okay, so in here, if if I mod divisor is equal to 0, we're going to add that to the sum, and we're going to add that to mini output. Mini output plus equals divisor. Okay, because like that, we're going to be adding these numbers, the divisors. But to make it look like this, we also have to add the plus signs. So just add plus, plus, okay. And then the last one, we're going to need to add an equal sign. So I think the easiest way to do this is to, once we're at the end, if we found a perfect number, we'll take off the last plus and we'll add an equal sign. Okay, so I do need spaces around this plus to make it look like this. All right, so down here, instead of adding I, we're going to add I plus colon, right? Because if you look at this, we have I plus a colon and a space, and then plus mini output plus break. Now, we didn't do one thing. We didn't change this last plus sign to an equal sign. So let's just run this though to make sure that it's working. Oh yeah, see, it couldn't find a fifth perfect number and it killed my tab. So, see if I can get that to close. Oh, good. All right, open that back up. And we'll stick with 3. Looks like we have an error somewhere. Oh, no, we don't. Okay, so 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus, all right, so we're getting there, right? This is pretty close. So it looks like we need to, 1 plus 2 plus 3, we need to change that to an equal sign and then add I again. Okay, so this last one, we'll change mini output. So mini output, we're gonna do what we did last time, dot splice. We're gonna take off this final plus sign. So we're gonna keep the whole string. So we'll start with index 0, and then we'll say mini output dot length minus 2, because we're gonna take off these 2 characters, okay? And I'm gonna assign this to mini output, okay? So that'll take off the last 2 characters with the plus sign right there. And then we need to add our equal sign and I. So mini output plus equals and whoops, and I. Okay. So let's give that a shot. Refresh this, type in 3. Oh, we got an error here. Mini output.splice is not a function. Whoops. Slice. Splice is a function, but not on strings. All right, let's put 3 on here. Okay, there we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. That was a great question. Any other questions?
Can you just show the code one more time completely so I can take a screenshot of it and study it later, please?
Yes, ma'am. You know what? I'll send this to the class. How's that?
Will
Thank you.
will you be saving this video on YouTube?
Yes. Well, not to YouTube, but it'll be with the live classrooms. So I'll upload it to my video spreadsheet, and it'll be in the live classrooms one.
So there's no way for us to download it then to save it. I know you can watch this over and over.
Yeah. I'll figure out a way for you to download it, and I'll let you know.
Okay.
Okay. It will take a while for it to upload. Zoom takes forever, which is why I don't post the links to these till like tomorrow. But I will post it either tonight or tomorrow. So.
Okay.
All right, and I'll send this function. I'll send this program out to you guys.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, and I'm sure. I think the practice exam also has one. I don't know if you guys would like that one better. Let's see what it did. Looks pretty similar. Doesn't have our cool little string concatenation with the plus thing to make it look like their output. So, all right. Well, any other questions about this program, about any part of the exam?
Do we just get one try on the exam?
Yes, you do. Part A and Part B like normal, but one try each. Yes.
So are there only like 10 questions on the part A?
Hang on a sec. Let me stop sharing my screen. Can you guys see my screen? Don't lie to me.
No.
We can just see you.
All right, let me check this out real quick. It's been a few months since I've looked at this exam. Okay, exam part A. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 questions on part A. And part B has a desk check, another desk check, another desk check, and a program, 2 programs. Okay, so 3 desk checks and 2 programs for part B. And yeah. All right, any other questions?
I got lots of questions.
Well, feel free to ask.
No, it's okay. I'm going to have to review this a lot of times.
Well, you guys have a few days. I used to do my live classrooms on Thursday. I'm like, that is terrible for exams. So, all right. Well, if you guys don't have any other questions right now, you're sure? Feel free to ask. Lynette, if you have a question, it's possible that other people do too.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you guys, thank you all for coming. You guys have been awesome. Super good questions. I hope that this has been helpful. I will send out that file to you, and I will post the recording to this as soon as it is available.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Have a great week, you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right. Bye-bye.